It's off and running.
I would like to note that the Committee on Ed Policy, please come to order. I would like to note that the Committee on Educational Policy acted in closed session this morning on nominations for honorary degrees. We will now invite public comment preceding the educational policy agenda items. We have 8 speakers today: Daryl Engin, Neil Holtgren, Gina Mascame, Cecil Canton, Gabriel Gutierrez, Kate Stevenson, Frederick De La Paz, and Xavier Sierra.
Sounds like more than 8.
Do we have the speakers?
Good morning. My name is Daryl Engen, and I'm a history professor at Cal State San Marcos. I do want to note that Cecil, who was mentioned before, will not be able to speak today. I'm here to urge you to rescind the Chancellor's Executive Orders 1110 and 1100 revised. The orders are ill-conceived, quick-fix attempts to save money by reducing time to degree without consideration for the educational mission of the CSU and without consultation with the people who know public higher education the best, the faculty who provide it. EO 1110 trashes remedial education as currently practiced in the CSU without any real plan for a replacement or any reason to believe it could be successful. It simply directs campuses to come up with their own plans for remediation within 1 year, which is a far cry from the precedents cited in the multi-year faculty consulted plans of Georgia and Tennessee. EO 1110 just rolls the dice and hopes that campuses miraculously come up with something good in 1 year. But if they don't, then what? There will be a lost generation of young people in California who failed out of the CSU with little hope of adequate employment and fulfilling lives. EO 1110, as EO 1110 trashes remedial education, EO 1100 revised eviscerates general education. Issues of shared governance and respect for faculty expertise aside, what is really alarming about EO 1100 revised is how it degrades the mission of the CSU, which, among other things, quote, requires of its bachelor's degree graduates breadth of understanding, depth of knowledge, and the acquisition of such skills as will allow them to be responsible citizens in a democracy. EO 1100 revised would turn the CSU educational mission into a strictly vocational one down the road. As originally envisioned, however, the CSU mission understands that a broad education is critical not only for job training, but also for career advancement and fulfillment of civic responsibilities. At a time when our country's democracy is being put to the test, when voter ignorance and imprudence are rampant, we can ill afford to strip our students' education down to the bare essentials of employability. Without a broad education beyond just their major requirements, our students might get a decent job straight out of college, but they will fail to move beyond the entry level and, even worse, become unfulfilled, unquestioning, docile automatons manipulated by unscrupulous leaders who will take them and our country down paths they should not go. EOs 1110 and 1100 revised might be well-intentioned, but they will ultimately prove to be counterproductive, leading many students to fail out while others who do obtain degrees will stagnate in entry-level jobs and be unfit for their civic responsibilities. Please don't let this happen. I urge you to rescind Executive Orders 1110 and 1100 revised. Thank you.
My name is Neil Holtgren. I'm pleased to speak with you about Executive Order 1100, Revised General Education Breadth Requirements. EO 1100 has impacted me in 2 ways. First, I serve as chair of Cal State Long Beach's University-wide Curriculum and Educational Policies Council, which will be tasked with revising CSULB's general education policy to reflect the EO. Second, I'm an associate professor of English who teaches intro-level GE courses that will potentially have to be reconfigured because of the executive order. My experiences during this academic year have convinced me that EO 1100 should be rescinded. It should be rescinded because it shortchanges our students, puts an unreasonable burden on campuses, and ignores a larger problem that we face. EO 1100 shortchanges students by imposing a cookie-cutter curriculum on campuses. It calls for limitless double counting between general education and academic majors. This means that many CSU students will not have the opportunity to take courses in a wide range of academic areas. CSU students, many of them first generation and students of color, won't have the chance to learn about Chicano graphic novels, their state's cross-cultural history, or the environmental consequences of fracking. The EO makes general education an afterthought within a professional major. It deprives students of the breadth and depth of knowledge, intellectual flexibility, and soft skills that make them good citizens and good workers. My students should have the chance to be intellectually curious and explore different subjects just like their UC counterparts. EO 1100 should also be rescinded because its brutal timeline harms all CSU campuses. The timeline is an impossible one if you believe in shared governance. The EO requires a complete redesign of GE in 1 year and was released on day 3 of Long Beach's fall semester. My job has taught me that good curriculum requires careful planning, and the 1-year timeline for the executive orders has put undue pressure on faculty, staff, and administrators. My colleagues and I in CFA take shared governance seriously and want to make sure that big curricular changes are integrated into campus policies. This cannot be done in 1 year. Finally, EO 1100 should be rescinded because it is the wrong solution to a problem we face. Many states are privatizing public education and cutting support for it just when students need it most. Opting for less educated students, fewer requirements, and lower standards is not a solution. It harms the public good. Please support California students and faculty by rescinding the Executive Order 1100. Join us in asking for more resources rather than limiting what students can learn. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gina Masakesme. I've been here before. This is my 3rd time. I'm from Cal State Northridge, and I'm the chair of Asian American Studies. Same issue as what has been raised about 1100 revised and 1110. I'm watching a disaster unfolding. We're going to be experimenting at Season campus alone. 3,000 students will be experimented upon because we don't have the classes ready. We'll come up with something, but it hasn't been consulted. But the math, because we eliminate developmental math, 3,000 students will be experimented upon with classes we have never tested out. Okay? And that's because someone's controlling the purse string, right? Even though we at Cal State Northridge faculty have voted no, non-compliance to ill-conceived policies, we do not control the purse string, and we will not be able to offer developmental math. And so we're going to come up with some random class that we have never tested, and we're going to offer that to 3,000 students. If I'm a parent, I would sue the state university. And this is just on our campus. We know that this is happening across campuses of the CSU. We here at Northridge are looked upon as sort of the leader to argue against these policies. And, you know, unfortunately that I'm here on spring break with some students and some faculty to keep on pressing on this issue. And last time I was very disappointed that you guys did not even talk about it. This is really ill-conceived, and we need to just stop it, look at it again, and come up with better ideas with faculty involved in this. There was no proper faculty governance. There was no proper faculty consultation. Students, staff, and faculty should know what's going on. And you should need to talk to them to figure out the best policy. This is about faculty governance. We voted no, and yet administratively, this is being forced upon our throat. Advisors are being told to come up with a new GE plan. This is radical change. Okay, so I'm going to leave it to other folks to speak now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Fitzpatrick. I'm from California State University, Northridge, and I am speaking on behalf of a student, Freddy de la Paz. Oops. Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I am not able to attend today's meeting due to my work schedule. However, I would like for my words to be heard. Robert Jensen, professor at the University of Texas at Austin, who teaches politics and ethics, said, "In a white supremacist culture, all white people have privilege, whether or not they are overtly racist themselves. I have struggled to resist that racist training and the racism of the culture. I like to think I have changed, even though I routinely trip over the lingering effects of that internalized racism and the institutional racism around me. But no matter how much I fix myself, one thing never changes. I walk through the world with white privilege. Yes, you see, I am not white and have not seen my perspective as a Latino male reflected in society's master narrative. Do you truly believe that progress works to the establishment's advantage, or could it be that this is the time for silenced voices to finally be heard? I learned this from classes I took at CSUN, which are all found within Section F. How dare you try to silence the very people who have worked so hard to be heard in a historic setting such as Cal State Northridge? Stop this nonsense now, or you will have an uphill battle ahead of you next semester. Take this as a warning. And that was Freddie de la Paz, a student at California State University, Northridge.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Saravia. I'm a Central American Studies major at Cal State University, Northridge, and I would also like to speak about what the message that I'm receiving from you about EO 1100 is being internalized by a Latino student. So, this quote was outside on your front door. I want my future students to know that education is more than just academics. Education is powerful. That's from Madison Paccioni from CSU Monterey Bay. So if we want our future students to know that our education is powerful, then what message is it that you are sending to those future students by not listening to or addressing the concerns of the students that stand before you? Is our education powerful? I'm not sure you think our education is powerful because you won't even allow us the time of day to speak. We get a fucking minute. So, what is this power that you speak of? Is it the power to question? Is it the power to critically think? Or do we just simply go about our days, get a job, and become the automatons that somebody over there mentioned? This leads me to believe that you value the education of certain people over students like myself who have been empowered and enraged through our experiences in the humanities. I did not learn about the millions of taxpayer dollars that the United States government funneled to the oppressive military regime in El Salvador during the 80s and 90s from my statistics class. I learned that in my CAS 310 Modern History. This war almost fucking killed my father. It decimated all of El Salvador. I would not know that if it were not for the humanities. I would not know of the oppression of Native American communities if it weren't for the humanities. I would not know of the oppression that continues in the African American communities if it wasn't for the humanities, or the oppression that Asian Americans, anybody has to deal with if it weren't for the humanities. These courses reflect my reality, my trauma, my struggles as a Latino man. Without Section F, I never would have discovered this. I continue to live in ignorance if it weren't for this. I am personally tired of having my education diagrammed by men who have no clue what it's like being a person of color in this country. If we want to improve this country, I implore you, please rescind EO 11100. My community already has to put up with President Trump. Section F empowers my community and teaches those who do not about our plight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Gutierrez. I am the chair of the Department of Chicana and Chicano Studies at California State University, Northridge. I concur with the speakers earlier today, and I want to add and maybe speak a little bit about really the culture of institutions and really what exists in terms of a top-down application of policy and educational policy in particular. And as it relates to Executive Order 1110 and 1100 revised, as well as impaction. There has been non-consultation of faculty with regard to the executive orders and limited consultation with regard to impaction from the beginning of the process. Discussion with faculty throughout the CSU reveals, at best, convening of faculty after the fact. When faculty are engaged and edicts given regarding policies coming from the Chancellor's Office, requests by faculty for data or evidence cited as rationales have been ignored. This is an affront to faculty governance. In some instances, education policies are being drafted by folks who haven't spent a day in a CSU classroom, again, without consultation of the stakeholders. Experiences such as those that we're dealing with right now with, in terms of the developmental English courses or writing courses and the transition to them, indicate early on that students through their self-placement are placing themselves in the wrong classes and therefore are finding themselves fighting an uphill battle. And oftentimes, actually, in one case, I had conversations with 5 students in one class alone who received fails. I had conversations with parents of those students who were not only concerned, but irate about the fact that they were being made to pay for classes that they were not prepared to take. Sorry. Just real quick. What we find is that in some instances, again, education policies are being drafted, again, by folks who don't have the experiential knowledge that is required of student success. Furthermore, Impaction appears to attempt to increase graduation rates by reducing the total number of students without necessarily increasing the number of graduates. Experiential knowledge is paramount to ensuring student success. Staff, students, and faculty voices must be central to the process. The top-down culture has to change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any more speakers? No? All right. Thank you for taking the time to speak with the committee today. It's now time for the committee to consider today's consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. The committee has 5 items on today's discussion agenda. Item 2 is an action item regarding recommended amendments to Title V regarding exemptions from the non-resident tuition. It will be presented by Lauren Blanchard, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs. Dr. Blanchard, please begin.
Thank you so much, Trustee Kimbell. Joining me today in making this presentation is Mr. Ray Murillo, who serves as our Director of Student Programs in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs. As you might recall, amendments to Title V, exemption from non-resident tuition, were presented as an information item to you during the January board meeting. Today's report is an action item requesting board approval for the amendment of Title V, sections 41906.5 and 4196906.6. On January 1st, new legislation went into effect providing additional options through which students can qualify for a non-resident tuition exemption. The original statute was created in 2001 by Assembly Bill 540. Specifically, this new law established that the attendance requirement can still be met through 3 years of attendance at a California elementary and/or secondary school, but now attendance at California adult schools and community colleges will also count toward the 3 years. And the graduation requirement can still be met through graduation from a California high school, but now it can also be met by earning an associate degree or fulfilling the minimum CSU transfer requirements at a California community college. There is no change in the registration requirements, and students are still required to submit the California non-resident tuition exemption request and affidavit form. The proposed Title V amendment will provide alignment with this new statute and necessary technical guidance for CSU campuses. Access to a high-quality education is always at the core of the CSU mission. These amendments will increase access to CSU campuses for California's community college and adult school students. Chair Kimbell, this concludes our report. Subject to any questions here today, the exemption from non-resident tuition item awaits the board's actions.
Thank you, Dr. Blanchard. Because this item involves amending a provision of Title V of the California Code of Regulations, these proceedings are deemed to be a public hearing under the provisions of the California Education Code. At this time, there are no members of the public who wish to comment on this proposed amendment. The public hearing is now closed. This is an action item before the Committee on Educational Policy. Only committee members may vote at this time. May I have a motion? Is there a second?
And just through the chair, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, and I don't even think I'm on the committee, but I like this item. I'm just curious, what's the universe of folks we're talking about? And as it relates to revenue, obviously we'll see a diminished amount of revenue for the new status that we're applying. What roughly is that estimate? Have we gamed that out?
Yeah, we don't have any estimates and projections on the number of students this may affect, mainly because we're also this is broadening to community college enrollment. So now that the students who enroll at a community college and finish not just the high school diploma, but also can use the transfer associate's degree or any associate's degree, and also the transfer requirements, it's hard to predict. I don't know what the exact number of undocumented students or really any AB 540 students are at the community colleges to give any of those types of projections. But fundamentally, what it does is that it reduces the non-resident fee to in-state fees. So any student getting this waiver is paying in-state fees rather than the non-resident.
Any other comments? Yes, Trustee Fagan?
I may, you don't know the numbers, obviously, but do you have an estimate of per student what the revenue loss would be?
That would be the difference between the non-resident fee and the resident fee, which I don't know off the top of my head on the fees. I know what the in-state tuition fee is roughly $6,000 a year. It's about $6,000 per student.
And so if we had, you don't have any way to guess how many people will be affected?
Not with this change, no. I don't have any projections. I know what the current enrollment is for a given, this particular past fall, but it doesn't account for the change in the law. So currently, of all total AB 540 students, we have about 12,000 students as of fall 2017. Again, this law went into effect on January 1, so the new provisions are barely going into place, so I don't know what that expansion may be.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
You've got one
Oh.
more person.
We have another.
Sebelius
Oh,
across.
I'm sorry. Trustee Sebelius?
If I understand this correctly, we are extending residence tuition to individuals who have already been here and studying in one form or another in our schools for several years. So the fact that they do not have residency, in my opinion, is a technicality. They are residents. And that's why I think it's important but irrelevant of how many revenues we lose. These are members of our community. They live in California. They study in California. They should be extended the courtesy of paying resident tuition, even if due to technicalities they cannot obtain California residency. So I support this. It doesn't matter to me whether there are 20, 200, or 2,000 students that pay less.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The recommended amendment to Title V regarding exemption from non-resident tuition are approved. Item 3 is an action item regarding enrollment management. The item will be presented by Nathan Evans, Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor for Academic and Student Affairs, and April Gromo, Director of Enrollment Management Services. Mr. Evans, please begin.
Thank you, Trustee Kimball. The 2017-2018 California State Budget Act requires the CSU to adopt policies related to 2 enrollment management topics by May 15, 2018. One, on the redirection of eligible student applications from impacted campuses to non-impacted campuses, and the second on the prioritization of local applicants for impacted programs. During the January board meeting, we presented these draft policy proposals. Today, we present the item for board action. Now I'd like to invite Dr. April Gromo, Director of Enrollment Management Services, to further present today's item. April?
Thank you, Nathan. The first proposal on redirection would apply to all CSU eligible undergraduate applicants who have not been admitted to any CSU campus. These applicants would be notified about the opportunity to be redirected. They would be asked to select their first and second choices of non-impacted campuses and would be given 21 days to respond. As responses are received, application records would be transmitted from the Chancellor's office to the non-impacted campuses. The students would then begin receiving communications and an offer of admission. 21 days is the longest window we can provide students given national new student admission confirmation deadlines. However, to ensure that no students lose their chance to attend the CSU, we modified the policy to provide 14 days of additional communication, after which we will automatically redirect non-responsive applicants to a non-impacted CSU campus. It is also worth noting that during the January board meeting, there was some discussion among trustees regarding state financial support to address these new requirements. It is an understandable concern, considering that if just 10% of potential redirected applicants enroll, the CSU would face enrollment growth of an additional 1% with a net cost of $16 million. Unlike local government agencies that may be reimbursed for new state statutory requirements, state agencies such as the CSU do not have such a provision. Therefore, all campuses will need to factor these new policies into their enrollment planning. I will now discuss the second proposal regarding local admission priority in impacted programs. Under this draft proposal, every impacted program at each CSU campus would be required to provide first priority to local applicants. Campuses would be required to clearly publish their first priority information on their impacted program website. Local applicants would still be subject to the supplemental impaction criteria imposed on all applicants. However, first priority would mean that applicants' GPA, eligibility index score, or other requirements would receive a bump, providing a finite advantage over applicants from outside the local area. Importantly, first priority is an admission advantage, not a guarantee. For first-time freshman applicants not admitted to their local CSU campus, under this proposal, the university would be required to inform these applicants about their California Community College options and encourage them to consider transferring to a CSU in the future. At the suggestion of trustees, campuses will also be required to discuss the associate degree for transfer opportunity within these communications. I would now like to turn it back to Nathan Evans for closing comments.
Thank you, April. Thank you, April. The proposed policies on redirection and first priority for local applicants in impacted programs have benefited from the input of students, faculty, administrators, and this board. While there is a real cost to fulfilling these state policy directives, effectively an unfunded mandate, the proposals before you today address legislative requirements, ensure that students' unique needs are taken into consideration, and enable campuses to continue balancing capacity and access for current and future students. Staff recommends board approval of both policies. Trustee Kimball, this concludes our presentation. Subject to any questions here today, the enrollment management item awaits the board's action.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions or comments? I have one, and then Thelma, John, Jane, Cy, Adam, Jack, Peter. Okay, I should just say who doesn't have a comment. Next time, that's what I'm going to say. So I just wanted to comment that once again, we are being presented with an unfunded mandate from the legislature. And to paraphrase Governor Pat Brown, as Doug said before, 100 students here, 100 students there, and pretty soon we're talking real money. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thelma?
Thank you, Trustee Kimball. I have a question, and I know I've asked it before, but I just wanted to walk through. For example, if I am a student and we'll say San Luis Coastal District, right? And it's highly impacted school, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. What are the chances of that student getting into the school if they're in high school there, as opposed to a student where I work in Inglewood going to CSU Dominguez Hills?
So there is variation across our campuses in terms of the number of applicants that they receive and then the capacity that they have. So there are varying rates of admission, and that varies campus by campus. And on campuses like San Luis Obispo, San Diego, Fullerton, Long Beach, there's variation by major because they are admitting students to a respective discipline. In developing this policy, the Admissions Advisory Council, I think, tried to balance that aspect of considering local, while also wanting to reinforce academic preparation for particular disciplines. And an illustration of that was to allow, so certainly afford local priority as students are applying to their local CSU in a particularly impacted major, but also recognize that there are particular programs on some campuses. Let's say a student resides in Ventura County, for example, and is seeking admission and interested in an engineering program that's not offered at their local CSU campus. So wanting to still find that balance to allow a student like that to have access to those unique programs that exist while affording all students some additional priority to their local campus.
The reason I ask, because I actually spoke to the superintendent, Eric Prater, and he was very concerned because he says that, his students and contrary to what people believe, that he has many low-income students. And so they can't afford to move out of their home. And so it's sort of, they're destined because of where they live to have a more difficult chance of getting into a CSU. So was that discussed any further than what you just explained? Because I think it seems unfair to me.
Yes, it was discussed. And again, back to Nathan's point, we were trying to balance students' local access with also program access. So also the opportunity in the example that you provided, a student may not have the means to move, but the new opportunity that we have with the redirection proposal is that a first-time freshman that does not get into San Luis Obispo will be asked if they're interested in redirection to a non-impacted campus. So that would be an avenue to a student that had applied to San Luis Obispo and maybe didn't get in.
Has there been any thought to other CSUs maybe providing less impacted courses nearby where they can possibly, open opportunities for students that live in those highly impacted areas?
So I would say all of this is a part of the conversation. The campuses that are, and I hope this addresses your question, there are campuses that are at a physical capacity. And so we have examples in the San Diego region, which San Diego State is also a highly impacted campus, where they are right now admitting only students from their local area, only with an ADT into majors like sociology. So all these things have been factored in, but knowing that there are these unique circumstances in each community with their CSU, I think that's sort of what has been attempted to land is a balancing that affords that local priority to get and consider the important considerations of students that are truly place-bound, and only consider those campuses, but also recognize that there are unique aspects that are affecting each campus and even down to the program level.
I'll get just one more question regarding that. So let's say there are, I'll take teacher education, right? And school districts in that area would like, teachers that reflect the diversity of their student population. And so the students that potentially could be in the teacher ed program aren't eligible to go there because of various reasons. How are we looking at specific majors that we could sort of promote those with colleges nearby, like let's say Northridge. I know they have a teacher ed program that could be an outreach to that area.
So I think that's a great question. There are terrific examples throughout the state where, particularly partnering with local community colleges, campuses have tried to build capacity of 2+2 programs, using the ADT, for example, as a basis for that. We also have, in the example you gave with teacher education, the Cal State Teach program, which is yet another alternative, although fully online and a different type of modality, is also trying to meet some of those needs. So there are some other examples in the North State around nursing, where we simply don't have enough capacity, and partnering a couple CSU campuses partnering with local community colleges to offer that. So there are a number of ways that sort of innovation is playing out in different areas because of those unique demands for particular disciplines like that.
Are we looking at it though systematically? Because it seems like these are innovations that are popping up, but are we looking at the data and saying, okay, because we know that there's a fewer number in these highly impacted colleges, and local school districts need teachers that reflect their population. Are we doing that sort of thinking, or are we just letting sort of innovation just happen?
So I would say there are a combination of both approaches. There are the local innovation that's playing out, and campuses that are sort of the most knowledgeable about and most engaged with their local communities are sort of being creative and innovative in that. There are other instances. We have one now that's emerged with cybersecurity, for example, where there is a need, and trying to actually bring the benefit of multiple of our campuses together to try to address a need. So I think it's twofold. There are ones at sort of the statewide level and system-wide level that we're trying to approach, but a lot is also happening organically in local campus communities.
Okay, it's just that I sort of wanted to hear a more, planned look at it, because I think when I look at this, voting for this, I think about those examples I just gave, and it troubles me that, students, just because of where you grew up, your high school, you've met all the A through G requirements, and, you're unable to attend your local college because it's highly impacted. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Nylon?
Thank you, Chair Kimbell. I appreciate April's comments on the unfunded mandates. I think you heard me last time when I slammed my forehead on the table here. I would like Vice Chancellor Relier to let me know if the $171 million budget gap, is this $16 million already included in the 171?
The 61 million of unfunded compensation is included in the 171.
No, is this $16 million, this new amount that we're talking about for this policy, included in the 171?
I don't believe so. Yeah. Just the only thing that's part of the 171 is the enrollment growth dollars, that if we were to be funded for enrollment growth for another 1%, which is about 3,600 students, that is included in the 171. So to the extent this would result in additional demand, that part is in the 171.
Right. So let me get this straight. So in our budget proposal to the governor's office, we said we would like to grow enrollment by 1%.
Correct.
That costs somewhere around $20 million, as I recall. Correct. Something in that ballpark.
And that $20 million.
In addition to that, though, this project that was part of the budget language is not included in that 1%. It is an additional 1% for an additional $16 million, unless we say we're going to get rid of the 1% that we submitted and allow this to substitute that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in essence, if you looked at what we submitted, this is another $16 million on top of the 171. So to answer the Lieutenant Governor's question, I think we need 187 million. And as the meeting goes, I would like to keep a tab.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Trustee Carney?
Trustee Nyland just made my point better than I could.
Okay. All right. Cy?
Yes, so many of our policy actions impact on our partners at K-12, the community colleges. And I'd like to suggest that representatives from those segments be included in the CSU Advisory Admission Committee. The other question is, who defines the local area for the campus, and are the campuses in agreement on what their local campuses defined as?
The campuses actually define their local admission area. Campuses have in the past also redefined their area, and they do that through the impaction public hearing process. So for example, a couple of years ago, Fresno State expanded their local admission area to add more community college transfer feeder schools. So in areas like, for example, for Chico, their area of course is much wider than Cal State LA and the LA Basin.
Do we have campuses that consider the whole state their local area?
Yes, we do.
Going back to your example of the Ventura student who wants to pursue an engineering, if they decide to pursue engineering, let's say Cal Poly Pomona, would their qualifications or admission criteria be higher than a local student?
By virtue of
if
this,
Pomona was their only option.
So Pomona's policy would need to give the priority for local priority, but then it would require that the student from outside the area achieve at a level higher than that local student to be admitted to that program.
Regardless of whether or not that student has another choice, a local choice. That doesn't seem to be fair. Okay, thank you.
All right, Trustee Day?
The more I learn about enrollment management, I realize it's probably one of the most difficult jobs university administrators have. So for every action, there's a equal and positive, or whatever that physics phrase is. I never took physics. So, to Trustee Melendez's question, in San Diego, of course, the camp and other campuses, since I'm from San Diego, lots of local students aren't able to get in. Under this new policy, how will that be managed? Is it going to be then the admission criteria, a subset of those denied, or you're then going to create a whole new level of admission criteria to increase GPA or other requirements?
So we would envision that every campus that has impacted majors, and campuses I referenced earlier like San Diego are impacted in all majors, that they will have to go through a process of modifying their current admission criteria, because to your point, they do provide some local priority, but there are still local students that are not admitted. This will not resolve that. There will still be situations across the state where demand from local students and students writ large are far exceeding the demand on that campus. But we would envision that each campus is quantifying how much priority that they would be providing to students in the admissions process. So for local students, they would need to identify that. And then that would be something that would be submitted for review as part of annual impaction, the annual impaction approval process to the Chancellor's office. So they would be quantifying that for every major. And again, there might be some variation by major or college, again, based on capacity and resources in individual programs.
And then to the redirection aspect of this item, before today's action, so a couple of years ago, whatever it might be, if a student applies, just so I understand the mechanics of it, how it works, if you're from Bakersfield and you're applying to Humboldt, if you live in Bakersfield and you're denied, under this new proposal, they're going to redirect you automatically? Is it? Because I mean, my situation with my children, they filled out multiple applications for multiple schools, so I'm just trying to understand the need for the redirection. If you already knew, you had a second and third and fourth and fifth choice of where you wanted to go. So we're now saying we're going to automatically make sure that they're redirected?
So in the scenario that you provided where a student that lives in Bakersfield applied to Humboldt and then was denied, we would be able to contact that student, say to them that you were denied admission to any campus that you applied, but you were CSU eligible. Are you interested in being redirected? We would then provide that student a choice, so a first and second choice campus. If the student never responded to us after the 14 days or the 21 days and the additional 14 days we would provide, we would then automatically redirect that student to a non-impacted campus that has capacity.
But so it's you who's recommending the campuses to the student, not the student choosing. Again, I'm just trying to understand in a practical way that would that really work? Wouldn't the student already have in their mind alternatives? And
so in the first pass, so let me back up all the way to the beginning of the process. Yes, the student has in their first pass at applying to the CSU, they can apply for as many campuses as they so choose. They also, if they qualify for a fee waiver, there is no fee to apply for up to 4 campuses. So they have that voice in the process up front. If even through that process, they're not admitted to any campus they choose. Let's say they only chose 2 highly selective campuses. Then this provides them an opportunity to make another decision at that point in time after hearing from the first 2 campuses. And then as a final safety net, if the student themselves didn't respond, then the system would redirect them to a campus that still had capacity. So we would effectively ensure that a CSU eligible student receives an offer from a CSU campus at the end of the day.
Does that answer your question? All right, and Trustee McCrory, and then Peter and Deborah.
I'm kind of the rookie in the arena here, so I'm gonna probably ask some dumb questions. Does this mean if I'm an admissions officer at San Diego State and I'm an impacted campus, that you are going to expect that the local preference number is going to be increased?
I think we'll expect to see change. Yes, we expect to see changes across the system. I mean, that was the legislative intent, is that there is a local priority afforded. And so we've been asked and began working on what type of reporting we would want to see from campuses annually. But yes, the intent is that this is being quantified and that this does result in fewer students from local areas not being admitted to their local campus.
I guess the problem would be if you were San Luis Obispo or you were San Diego State and you've developed this extremely high academic standard, that you're kind of modifying the admissions criteria to benefit people who are not competing at the same level as the out-of-service area applicants.
So
I know it's a long-standing debate.
Yeah, I think it is a challenge, but the intent behind this particular legislation was very clear, and that it was that the priority for local students be sort of clear and that it be quantified in some manner. And so, yes, I think you're right that there is that debate. Certainly the Legislative Analyst Office has published before and believes very strongly that our campuses should be regional institutions. I think for many reasons, there is an element of that is correct, but there are also realities of each campus which require that they reach much more broadly than their immediate area. So I think, again, sort of back to the development of this policy, it was trying to find a good landing spot that balanced that the knowledge of what the legislative intent was, which was to afford local consideration priority, but also recognizing those unique aspects of all of our campuses that need to be factored in the admissions process.
And how would you quantify that impact at a place like San Luis Obispo, San Diego State, some of the other universities that are seriously impacted?
So what's been outlined in the policy is that they are quantifying either a GPA advantage or an eligibility index advantage that's given to local students. So that they're admitting their local or students with that local priority at a level slightly below students that would be from outside the area. And again, there would be variation by major.
But what would be the shift in terms of acceptances and admissions into the university? Between in-service and out-of-service? It
would, again, the campuses that you cited as examples, they're admitting by major, so it would vary even down to the major, depending on what their applicant pool is from each of those. So I think in some cases it may be a shift of 2 students, and others it may be a shift of 20, it might be 200, again, depending on the applicant pool for each of those individual majors.
Okay. And why would there be a 1% increase in enrollment as a result of this policy?
That's the second policy, which is the redirection, yes.
Okay, and the fiscal impact is $16 million?
Yes, if 1% of the students accepted that, yes. Or the percentage of students that accepted would equate to 1% of enrollment growth.
One concern I just have in terms of process, Chancellor White, is that if there's that big a fiscal impact of a policy change, we ought to see it as like a fiscal impact section in the report so that we would know that, because I didn't even pick that up until we had the oral presentation.
Well, thank you, Jack.
Love a first meeting.
When the legislative ideas are being cooked, we do an analysis and we do provide an estimation of the cost. But then it is up to the legislature to decide through their various committees and process. Sometimes if the cost is way up there, it'll get put in a abeyance and won't go forward, because other times when it's a more modest cost, people will make a judgment in Sacramento that it is worthy enough even without being funded. But I can't help but think about 16 million here and 16 million there. In our earlier conversation, where Doug Vagan was saying $1 million here and $1 million there. And this is one of the things that is difficult in a public university, is to have what are intended to be helpful and good ideas come from elected officials, but without the dollars associated with implementing them. And this will take resources, and it's resources that, as John was saying, wasn't asked for in the front end. So if we put these two together, then we're now created another sort of unfunded $16 million. So it's an imperfect process.
Well, and I think there are two problems. I guess the other part of this is I put my old city management hat on, and we used to get jammed with these unfunded mandates by the state of California on 10 or 12, 13 a year, it seemed like. And they would always tell us they'll fund them later. The funding later never happened. And so the cities and counties would get stuck with these mandates. And I think what we ought to do as part of the budget process is go back the last 4 or 5 years and quantify how many of these unfunded mandates have been leveled on us that when we actually oppose them and we didn't get funding for it. And go back to the legislature as part of this budget process and say, okay, either undo these or fund them the way you should have funded them to begin with. And that's the problem I'm having with this is on two levels. One, the funding issue and a lack of funding from the state for this program. And two, what I see is kind of a fundamental change in the admissions policy with respect to impacted universities.
Okay. Trustee Taylor?
Thank you very much. I would second Trustee McRory's comments. I thought they were spot on, and I'd love to see that analysis. I'd like to follow up on Trustee Day's question because I want to make sure I completely understand. On pages 3 and 4, you talk about the process by which we redirect people, right? So they don't get into their favorite campuses that they applied for. We send them a note saying, hey, you got 21 days. Here are your options. We don't hear from them. In 14 days, we text them, we email them and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? And we don't hear from them, we say, we're going to show you who's boss, we're going to admit you anyway. And I guess, how many students would fall into that category of being redirected, regardless? And importantly, because in this competitive world of higher education, sometimes people compare yield rates, right? So many people apply, you admit this many in order to get a class of this many. And if the number admitted skyrockets because we now suddenly dump 5,000, 10,000 admitted students on a campus, their yield rate looks kind of ugly. And that's not a positive thing in the grand scheme of things, I think.
Correct. So we approximate that there's about 32,000 students that are eligible for CSU admission that are
32,000.
32,000
That's
that
a
are
lot.
not, yes, that are not admitted to any CSU campus. So the 1% basically comes from 1% of the 32,000 being interested in redirection. So if the 3,200 students do contact us, tell us where they are interested in going, that leaves approximately 29,000 students that we would be redirecting to non-impacted campuses.
Ouch.
Yes, and that piece of the policy, so the Admissions Advisory Council first wanted to do the notification piece, but there was a concern by the board that we are leaving a safety net that's not there. So we actually changed the Admissions Advisory Council proposal to add in that redirection as a last resort.
So April, I would just encourage the team, when they're calculating yield rates and the like, is there any way to kind of exclude those who've been mandatorily admitted even though they didn't apply?
Yeah, we do have the ability in our new admissions application to notate any student that has been redirected. We also have that in enrollment reporting that the campuses are required to do. So it is part of the process. We'll just need to make sure that campuses are following that process and properly reporting those students.
Good. Yeah, we don't want to create the impression that some of our campuses are super undesirable, right? Because of a quirky nature of some mandates that came down from Sacramento that haven't been fully thought out.
And Trustee Taylor, if I may also add, the model for this, sort of the legislative intent, is the process that the UC goes through in their, they don't call it redirection, but referral, in which first-time freshmen are referred to Merced, and transfer students that are UC eligible that are not admitted to any impacted campus are referred to, I believe, just Santa Cruz and Merced now. So that's the model they're looking for, is and that's, again, part of the reason this last safety net was put in place, in that all students that are eligible have the opportunity either to say they're not interested in that redirection, or are offered an offer of admission from a CSU campus in the end.
Okay. Trustee Farrar?
I just have a quick question about process, and I don't know if you stated it or I'm just not understanding. So if a student doesn't get into their choices, then they're contacted and saying, would you like to be redirected?
That's correct. So any student that is denied due to impaction or is waitlisted at a campus and has not been accepted by any CSU campus would be contacted and asked if they are interested in redirection and asked for their first and second choice campuses.
But they wouldn't be offered campuses that they could be redirected to, or?
That's what the first and second choice would be the campuses that have available capacity to take those students.
So when you send them the letter about would you like to be redirected to these campuses, it is in there, right? They don't have to say yes and then you come back with which campus. That's what it sounded like to me.
No, it's all one process.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. This is an action item before the Committee on Educational Policy. Only committee members may vote at this time. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Concerned? Okay. The enrollment management policies are approved. Item 4 is an action item regarding academic planning. The item will be presented by Lauren Blanchard, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, Christine Mallon, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs and Faculty Development, Cal Poly Pomona President Soraya Coley, and Michael Boytim, Assistant Director for the Kaiser Permanente School of Anesthesia. Dr. Blanchard, please begin.
Thank you so much, Chair Kimbell. In frugal times and flush times, during economic downturns and periods of prosperity, universities must remain relevant by creating programs for the future. As you will hear tomorrow during the presentation by the Public Policy Institute of California, the state will be facing a shortage of 1.1 million highly educated workers by 2030. As we endeavor to meet the CSU share of the forecasted need through Graduation Initiative 2025, we do have a responsibility to offer the appropriate academic degree programs that will not only serve our students and California, but also help shape and create each student's future. In this presentation, we will provide an annual update on the academic planning process and changes to the CSU Academic Master Plan. Today, 43 degree programs are presented for the board's consideration. These programs are relevant to students' interests and responsive to societal and workforce needs. But just as the state's needs are constantly evolving, so too are our degree program projections. Balancing the 43 new program degree programs are 39 programs presented for removal. Before we delve into greater detail about these degree program projections, I would like to start by sharing some background about our degree programs. The California State University is the largest producer of the state's educated, skilled, and diverse workforce. historically awarding nearly 100,000 bachelor's degrees every year, and through Graduation Initiative 2025, working to add 500,000 more by 2030. The CSU provides more job-ready graduates to California's competitive industries than any other public or private university in the state, annually producing half of the undergraduate degrees awarded in California and awarding more bachelor's degrees than either the University of California or private nonprofit institutions. Our graduates really are critical to nearly every industry important to the state's economy. Of the new degrees granted in California annually, the CSU produces 50% or more of graduates in the fields of agriculture, public administration, engineering, business, and criminal justice. Our academic planning process and the CSU Academic Master Plan ensure that the CSU meets the state's needs for skilled workers, as Dr. Christine Mallon, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs and Faculty Development, will now explain to us. Chris?
Thank you, Dr. Blanchard. Thank you, Dr. Blanchard. Trustees, with this agenda item and the proposed resolution, campuses are seeking your authorization to add degree program projections, which are long-range plans, to the CSU Academic Master Plan. Each campus has an academic plan that shows all the degree programs they are authorized to offer and those that they are authorized to develop over the next 10 years. The full list of proposed projections appears in Attachment A of this agenda item. Your approval of projections allows campuses to begin developing degree proposals, which are subject to campus review and approval before they can be sent to the Chancellor's office. Their further review takes place, sometimes requiring revisions before a proposal can be approved by the Chancellor. After that, campuses can enroll students. Attachment D provides a detailed overview of the CSU academic planning process. As part of the Chancellor's Office review, internal and sometimes external reviewers consider these elements of every new degree program proposal to ensure that there is a demonstrated need, student interest, and sufficient resources to support the planned program. So we look at faculty, curriculum, administrative support, resources like space, equipment, library, and supplies, state needs, student demand, and assessment of student learning and program quality. As Dr. Blanchard mentioned, CSU degree programs respond to changes in the workforce. This year, for example, the new program projections reflect growth in the construction industry, among other trends, with jobs in the construction field rising to among the 100 fastest growing occupations in the state. There will be a need for leaders with analytical and management skills. Correspondingly, construction management is one of the 50 fastest growing occupations in the state, with an average annual salary in California of over $102,000. To educate those managerial professionals, 3 campuses are seeking trustee authorization to develop construction management degree programs. That is Fresno for an MS program, Long Beach also for an MS program, and San Diego for a BS program. These future programs would join those currently offered at Chico, East Bay, Fresno, Long Beach, Northridge, Sacramento, and San Luis Obispo. Whereas earning a bachelor's degree provides an opportunity to begin a career, graduate programs provide working professionals an avenue for advancing their careers and for students to become prepared for doctoral education. The CSU awards nearly twice as many master's degrees as are conferred in the UC. I'd like now to invite President Soraya Coley to discuss a new degree program projection at Cal Poly Pomona. President Coley?
Thank you, Chris. Cal Poly Pomona joins with the 22 other CSUs in being responsive to the current and projected needs within our regions and across our state, the nation, and globally. Our faculty and staff at Cal Poly Pomona are passionate about academic excellence and providing students with high-quality undergraduate and graduate education that successfully prepares them for the future of work and human engagement. As an inclusive polytechnic university, Our approach prepares our diverse student body to be successful in a complex world by finding solutions through multi and interdisciplinary collaboration, inquiry, innovative and creative problem solving, and community and social engagement. Our proposed Master of Science program in Business Analytics highlights our commitment to preparing our students for booming career opportunities in data science. For the last 3 years, Glassdoor's 50 Best Jobs in America report has ranked data scientists the highest. The Glassdoor job score uses 3 factors: number of job openings, salary, and overall job satisfaction. Currently, more jobs are being created for data scientists and related jobs than there are prospective candidates. Looking at our own region, the San Gabriel Valley, 22% of all jobs are in financial activities and professional and business services, which collectively account for 28% of payroll distribution among all industries. Notably, the sectors with the 3 highest annual wages are financial activities, information analytics, and professional and business services. The digital enterprise behind today's successful organization relies on large and complex data for timely decision-making and insight into consumers, operations, markets, trends, and patterns that forecast future circumstances and assess risk in such fields as healthcare, energy, defense, education, professional, athletics, politics, along with other industries. Survey data indicate that the greater Los Angeles area will have a need for at least 2,514 data scientists in the next 5 years. And data from the Graduate Management Admission Council indicate that 4,125 students plan to pursue a Master's of Science in Analytics on the West Coast in the next several years. Today, our cybersecurity program is recognized internationally, and we are one of only a handful of campuses where the National Security Agency hires directly. We are also one of 8 universities in North America to have the opportunity to train IBM Watson in cybersecurity. Cal Poly Pomona's Master of Science in Business Analytics builds upon this academic track record and is designed to address the workforce needs that I previously mentioned. The program will teach students about analytics in such domains as marketing, operations, human resources, finance, real estate, and information systems. It will also include tool and discipline-specific courses such as statistical programming, database management, big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. In addition to the technical and methodological aspects of business analytics, we will focus on instilling within students the ability to identify, frame, and communicate analytics problems, methods, and solutions coherently. Students will also gain an understanding of how to lead change in organizations using data analytics. At Cal Poly Pomona, we take great pride in providing excellent undergraduate and graduate education that prepares our students to be not only astute about today's issues, but also lifelong learners who can tackle the opportunities and challenges of tomorrow. The Master of Science program in Business Analytics is but one example that signifies this commitment to our students, as well as to current and future workforce needs of our region, our state, and the nation. I will now turn it back to Chris.
Thank you, President Coley. In addition to bachelor's and master's degrees, the CSU also offers several doctoral degree programs. One of these programs, the Doctor of Nursing Practice, or DNP, fills a statewide need for nurses prepared to serve in advanced clinical practice and to educate graduates to serve as faculty. I'd now like to invite Dr. Michael Boytum, Assistant Director of the Kaiser Permanente School of Anesthesia, to speak directly to the importance of CSU Dnp programs to California's communities. Dr. Boytum.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, members of the board, Chancellor White, and Chair Kimbell. Thank you for allowing me to provide some background information regarding the projection proposal for Cal State University San Bernardino to build on the current CSU Doctor of Nursing Practice program in nurse anesthesia. This program is offered through the Southern California Doctor of Nursing Practice Consortium, which includes the Fullerton, Long Beach, and Los Angeles campuses. The nurse anesthesia program is based at the Fullerton campus. For 40 years, Kaiser Permanente has partnered with the CSU system, offering in 1978 the first Master of Science program in nurse anesthesia. This successful relationship continues today. Kaiser Permanente provides funding and full-time faculty for the CSU Fullerton program in nurse anesthesia. The program has graduated and supplied more than 1/2 of the nurse anesthetists employed in California today. An expanded need for this kind of nursing education is now being driven by a national accreditation mandate that all nurse anesthesia programs be offered at a doctoral level by 2022. Cal State San Bernardino wants to assist in continuing to meet the state's need for demands for prepared nurse anesthetists. Today, Cal State University San Bernardino requests your approval to begin planning a DNP program for its Palm Desert campus. The program would afford an excellent opportunity to expand outreach to medically underserved areas in the Coachella Valley, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties, which are in dire need of advanced practice nurses such as nurse anesthetists. This program will also offer the opportunity to educate nurses from the Coachella Valley, which are often first generation in their family to attend college, and employ them in the Valley as advanced practice nurses after graduation. Initial discussions regarding a Palm Desert DNP program conceive of the idea of the Southern California DNP Consortium offering an innovative model that would combine face-to-face, teleconference, and web-based programs. Clinical experience would be completed at 8 medical centers in the Valley, ambulatory surgery centers, and a military hospital in the Riverside and San Bernardino counties. The shortage of healthcare professionals in the region is so severe that donors are eager to support a consortial DNP program at the Palm Desert campus. Cal State San Bernardino has held discussions with funding agencies such as the Barker Foundation and Desert Healthcare District, which have expressed a robust interest in providing external funding for the DNP program once it has been approved. This innovative program, which also provides a template curriculum for other advanced nursing programs to develop at the Palm Desert campus in the future to address the shortage of family and behavioral health nurse practitioners in the Valley. As part of its community benefit program, Kaiser Permanente is committed to supporting the DNP education at the Palm Desert campus in the following ways. Number one, funding a full-time program director, salaries and benefits to administrate and manage the Southern California DNP Consortium program at the Palm Desert campus. Number two, providing a teleconference program whereby 6 full-time faculty funded through Kaiser Permanente at the Fullerton program provide instruction through distance education and web-based learning, minimizing the need to hire many faculty at the Palm Desert campus. And finally, providing existing contractual clinical training at Kaiser Riverside, Riverside County Regional Medical Center, and Desert Regional Medical Center. Your approval of the Cal State University San Bernardino DNP projection proposal will allow the campus to continue planning discussions with the Southern California DNP Consortium. Through this partnership, CSU will be able to meet the critical need for nurse anesthetists and other advanced practice nurses in the Coachella Valley, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. On behalf of those underserved communities and Kaiser Permanente, I urge your support. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Boyton. We so appreciate the decades-long relationship that the CSU has had with Kaiser Permanente Education.
You're welcome, Chris.
This agenda item details 43 new degree program projections that are recommended for your approval. These include projections such as the Data Analytics Program referenced by President Coley, the Doctor of Nursing Practice Program, as Dr. Boyton just explained to you. Trustee approval allows the campuses to develop a degree proposal over the next 10 years. Balancing the possible expansion of programming are 39 programs that are being removed from the academic master plan, as are reported by our campuses. 8 projections have been removed from academic plans because no proposals were developed by the deadline specified. 19 existing programs have suspended admission of new students, and 12 existing degree programs have been permanently discontinued following campus consultation as specified in discontinuation policy. When programs suspend new admission or are permanently discontinued, students who are already enrolled in the programs are permitted to finish their degrees. As the Chancellor's Office reviews the new BA and BS degree proposals, the 120-unit limit remains a central consideration. At this time, 96% of CSU BA and BS degrees require no more than 120 units. The Chancellor has granted permission for some variants, however, where there is accreditation, licensure, preparation, or professional standards that would result in a need to build in more than 120 units into a degree program. Approval of the resolution presented for board action today will authorize new program projections, those appearing in bold red font in Attachment A. With your approval, campuses will begin developing degree proposals for the Chancellor's review and approval. As new degree programs are launched across the system, the CSU provides opportunities for students to become workforce-ready graduates whose skills and knowledge contribute significantly to our society and to the economy. And Chair Kimball, this concludes my summary of the annual academic planning report. Dr. Blanchard, our guest, and I would be pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Boyton, I had a question. When was the date that Kaiser started their partnership with the CSU?
With Cal State, that was in 1978.
78?
Yes.
Okay. And I also had a question. So am I right in understanding that then there is not going to be a cost to the CSU for this nursing program?
There is a cost, and it's a state-supported program, so some of the costs are covered by general fund, as Chancellor White was saying with the AUD program. But Dr. Boyton can tell you about the contributions Kaiser has made to the Fullerton program and to San Bernardino to allay some of those costs.
So currently, Kaiser partners with Cal State Fullerton to offer a Master of Science degree in nursing. Obviously, Kaiser can't offer a degree, so we partner with Cal State. Kaiser fully funds and operates the program and funds full-time faculty for the program, and is in ownership of the program, but then partners with Cal State for degree offerings and teaching of some core nursing classes.
Okay, thank you. George?
Thank you.
Becky?
I just, can I go? Yeah. I think we're being a little not as clear as we can with regards to the general fund. I see that we keep asking questions about the general fund and if there's cost attached to all these programs, and it isn't until we ask that we get the answer. So maybe we can be a little more clear and have the information ready of what programs are requiring us to dip into the general fund would be great. And I'm just really amazed at how we keep doing all these programs and still don't have the support from the state as we're helping the state. But anyway, back to my original comment. My question is about the 19 existing programs that we have that we suspended. How are we making sure that the students are receiving the right courses and we're not doing substitutions or making them take 2 courses for 1 course requirement? How are we making sure that we're not cheapening their education?
We have a discontinuation policy that applies to the whole system, and every campus has to develop its own discontinuation policy that meets the requirements of the system-wide policy. And addressing what you've just raised is part of that. So we have to ensure that students, in a reasonable amount of time, have the resources available to them to finish their degree programs. Now, often students will ask for a substitution of a course if it's not offered in the next semester or a quarter, and it would delay their graduation, and faculty are allowed to do that. So we try to look out for the students' interests and work with students on their plans.
Becky?
Thank you. So sorry about this. I'm really grateful for this presentation because this is certainly an area that I have known nothing about and never fully understood. So I think it's really beneficial to the board to understand how new programs are developed what happens with old programs, etc. If I'm understanding this correctly, a new program, the idea of a new program originates at the campus level and receives the approval of the chancellor's office before it can go forward and of the board. I'm wondering a couple of things. I see that we're proposing 43 new programs and abandoning or leaving behind 39, most of which are master's degrees programs on both sides of that equation. Do the campuses have guidelines or some kind of a template that they need to be looking at to figure out what are the workforce needs of the state of California? Where are there gaps? Where are there places that they can, as President Coley has presented, they've done obviously an amazing job at Cal Poly Pomona, sort of predicting where things are going and making sure that we have the programs to meet them. So do the campuses have some direction as to what they should be thinking about from their campuses? Also, does the chancellor's office have the opportunity to say, for example, we have X number of nursing programs at the Cal States, but that's not enough. And I think, blank campus could benefit from developing a nursing program. And so I urge you to do so. Does that happen as well? And I see that, the last question, I see that we have developed or are developing new programs in mental health and construction and data science. But I also noticed that we're developing 5 new programs in what appear to be athletics or something related to athletics. And I'm wondering what's the source of, what is the rationale for having those 5 new programs out on the table?
So we've got 3, and I'll go in order. The first one is for the template. We have meetings with our provosts and with our associate vice presidents of academic affairs and talk about trends, but there's no direction or template for the campuses to follow. We have found success through a regional approach. And it is academic affairs on the campuses looking at what the local needs are, as Dr. Coley was talking about, but also seeing how it affects what we're already offering. So if there is an explosion of degrees and too many at one time, that slows down when it gets to the chancellor's office, and a campus is seeking that authorization to even begin a plan. We look for the same kinds of information that President Coley told us about in every projection proposal, and those are reviewed before they go to the trustees. Where there isn't a strong case, we will ask a campus to reconsider, and we don't recommend it to the trustees. The question about if we tell the campuses what they should develop, or let's say for nursing, we know right now we have a shortage of nurses. For that one specifically, it is so expensive that we can't offer as many programs as we would like to. And even if we opened up new seats, we wouldn't have the faculty at this point or the clinical placements to be able to prepare those nursing students for licensure. It's a national program. We really do like to rely on the campuses to know their industry boards and their local needs and their employers, and that's how we do planning. For athletic training, the accreditor for athletic training changed from having a bachelor's degree as the entry-level degree for being a certified professional to changing that to a master's degree. And so that's why you're seeing elevations of not just bachelor's degrees, but now master's degrees. We think the bachelor's degrees in athletic training will go away, and the foundational baccalaureate level will be in probably kinesiology.
Sure. Trustee Sebelius?
Thank you. It's also on that point. I found the presentation by Dr. Boytum on the Doctor of Nursing Practice very compelling. I had the pleasure of visiting the Palm Desert campus last Friday, and the facilities are brand new and in abundance. And we're talking about an area where we have, with all due respect, an aging population that is a Palm Springs, Palm Desert area, and also a very wealthy area. However, at the same time, the income discrepancy of the Coachella Valley is one of the largest in the nation. And to have a campus there to fulfill a local need, the collaboration with 8 hospitals, and in light of having most of our nursing programs impacted, is a great opportunity to work with community to gather funding to this very expensive program. And I've also been to other campuses where we could admit more students to the nursing program because we have the facilities, but the region doesn't have the hospitals for clinical placements. All this we have at the Palm Desert campus. So I'm very happy that it coincides with my visit, that I can report back to the board that this is a very unique opportunity. And yes, an expansion will cost us more money, but we're fulfilling a great societal need with probably lower costs than if we did it in another place. And do not also forget that well, it was not mentioned, so I can't say do not forget, but also one of those goals of the Palm Desert campus is to educate local citizens who then, this is the hope, will stay in the area that is so far in dire need of nurses and nurses practitioners. So great project, great presentation, and I'm happy that I can support a program like that.
Thank you so much.
Trustee Furstenberg?
Dr. Borton, did you say the program began in 78?
The nurse anesthesia program began in 1972, and it was what we called a certificate program. So they offered a certificate of completion, and then in 1978, Kaiser partnered with Cal State Long Beach to offer the first Master of Science in Nursing program.
And could you share how many students are in the program? Sort of the gender balance between them? Do they all then go on to work for Kaiser Permanente? Is there a relationship between how long they stay with Kaiser? Sort of how does that all flow?
Well, we receive in our current program at Fullerton, we receive between 300 and 350 applications for 35 slots. So it's a very competitive program, and we receive applicants from all over the United States. The demographic makeup is usually 50-50, 50% men, 50% women. Sometimes it vacillates depending on the applicant pool. One of the, I'm going to address your question regarding the Kaiser Permanente. The program is funded through community benefit dollars at Kaiser Permanente, which means that this program educates nurses from the community and sends them back into the community. So it's not a Kaiser feeder program. Although Kaiser does benefit from the program, we usually retain about 50 to 60% in the Kaiser system. And that's California, Oregon, Hawaii, that we're supplying nurse anesthetists in the Kaiser system. But all of our graduates obtain employment after graduation. They usually receive about 3 or 4 grants for employment per student, so they are fulfilling a good community need. And that's the benefit of the program, because it's a community benefit program.
I'd like to add the starting salary at Kaiser for a nurse anesthetist is $180,000. National average is $160,000, and the median in California is $198,000 annual salary.
All right, Trustee Fong?
So I have a question with regard to the programs that are being discontinued and then the ones that are being added. Where do we come up with budget-wise? Are we spending more money? Are we saving money? Or is it even?
I think that's one I can't answer because we don't collect that kind of information, and it would depend on the number of students enrolled in each program, the cost of each program. So it would be pretty complicated. But what we do see is that every year as new plans come forward and you hear the planning that Dr. Coley was talking about, the same kind of planning goes into discontinuing a program. Most of the programs that have gone into enrollment suspension or discontinuation do so because of low enrollment. So there has been a determination made that those are not a good investment of resources anymore.
I also had a question in the same vein. Looking at that, at least for this year, it looked like there was a 4. We were net 4. 40 some are being proposed, 43 are being proposed, and 39 are being dropped. So there seems, and you can answer this, it seems to be an accretion, a course accretion over the years. And when I just an observation, see if that's true. And the other thing I'm wondering is, what happens if you have a course, I'll just make something up, Portuguese, perhaps that you had a Portuguese department and it's not popular and you just have a few students. You have a tenured professor teaching Portuguese and hardly any students want it. What happens there?
I might get some help from this from the presidents, but I can tell you that often we have faculty who can teach in many programs in help with general education. And so as majors decline, we usually can find a home for a faculty member in another department. Chancellor White, do you want to add anything to that?
I think that in some respects is accurate. I'm certain there's also other times when somebody's expertise doesn't lend itself, and there may be other ways in which those solutions are found. I think, however, having run 3 campuses in my career before coming here, this is an example where the presidents have their finger on the pulse of their campus-based resources. And what we're being asked here as a board is to allow over the next decade campuses really to do the kind of planning to stay relevant in their community and their region as the community expectations evolve over time. It would be an irresponsible president to bring back a proposal for a degree program when they didn't have the resources to do so. I doubt that it would. I know it wouldn't leave the campus, but if it ever happened to slip through the cracks when it got here, that analysis would stop it from coming to the board for approval. So this is really sort of an early step, but I think as a university, even at any time, we have to have this horizon out there as to what California needs from us. And so I think that's really what the ask is here, is that planning horizon. But the campuses are really very responsible and responsive. And you can redirect some faculty, but it's hard to get a chemist to teach music, for example. But there may be general education courses in sort of physical sciences that somebody who has a skill set that is no longer needed at the upper division to teach at the lower division. And we are obligated to take, for those faculty who do have the tenure status, we're obligated to make sure that they remain productive in ways they could do more committee work or more research work as well. But any presidents want to weigh in? I see Diane's got a red light on.
Just real briefly, I would say also in response to your question about what happens in the case of French, not Portuguese, but French.
I didn't want to pick on Portuguese.
Of course. But in the case of French, we did face that exact dilemma. It was low enrollment and there weren't enough students and we had to do something. And so in modern languages, our faculty and the deans of those colleges, the CSU campuses in the Los Angeles region all got together and formed a collaborative. So French continues, but not as a separate department by department on 5 different campuses. So that collaboration among the campuses enabled that to continue.
So then would that professor of French be traveling to different campuses to teach?
They do these online, and some of them come to our face-to-face, but the faculty, as the chancellor pointed out, are then redeployed in other areas. They might teach culture or history or something instead of the language itself. But my point is, we do try to be innovative, and there are still not many, but some students who want French, and we have some faculty who want to teach French, and so we're trying to accommodate those needs, but in a way that really crosses campus lines.
President Haynes?
Just add a few more probably examples to your very good question. One, to remember that there are still several campuses, Cal State San Marcos among them, still young and still growing. So some of our looking at new degrees are within both for the campus and certainly within region and what we know our students need. Two, with respect to industry advisory councils, we certainly have done that, and our newest approved set of courses are beginning our engineering programs with a $6 million federal grant, a $1.5 million industry gift to help us launch that engineering program, which industry leaders in the region of San Diego said would be a niche and not competitive with all of the other universities in the region, and with an understanding from the industry that they would be asked by us, if approved by this board, to begin to step up and help us with the costs of renovating a building, with the technology and support for labs, et cetera. And the third I would say to you is that many of us, certainly in building master's degree programs, and particularly given the Doctor of Nursing program we were just talking about, many of us also have been growing master's programs on the self-support model, where we know there's a workforce demand and good salaries on the other end. So just to help contextualize even further.
Thank you. George?
Thank you. My question goes back to Trustee Fong's original question. I'm just really confused, and maybe you can help me understand. How do we not know if we're staying even, owing money, or making revenue, especially as we are talking about being efficient with our budget?
These are campus decisions, and the president manage their campus finances and the programs they offer. So I don't know if any presidents want to speak to this. It looks like they do.
Let me just say that on the campus, those questions are raised, and any new proposal that comes forward must include budget implications. And so, for example, the proposal that I've just talked about, there are faculty in 3 other departments that are coming together to create this new master's program. We already have labs in place, and so any proposal from, I'm sure, all of the campuses, the president scrutinizes very carefully. It comes to the Senate and scrutinizes very carefully in terms of the budget implications, whether or not there is a new request. In this case, for the master's program, there is no new request for resources, and whether or not what the implications are for labs and other kinds of support as they go forward. So we take very seriously our fiscal responsibility and to be able to justify that.
Okay.
Yes, back to the other points about the relevance of academic programs. When I first arrived at CSU Bakersfield, I felt that the campus was marginalized in the region by not having academic programs that relate to the largest industries, namely oil and agriculture. And so we had meetings with executives from those areas, and I said, for example, with respect to agriculture, we could not have the full-blown agriculture programs that Cal Poly San Luis Obispo has or that Fresno State has, but what can we do to be helpful to your industry? And what they said, and I'll try to be quick with this, was that they were getting all of those kinds of programs that they needed from those other campuses, but that their big problem was that they were not maintaining the management capacity to keep up with the growth of their operations. And they had a regular turnstile of people coming into Bakersfield to work for them and then leaving after a year or two. And so what they said was, if we could have a program in agribusiness, that would be really important to us. And so that was an easy one to do. And so we created a concentration within our Bachelor of Science in Business Administration program in agribusiness. And those students were taken up as quickly as they had enough background to be useful and helpful to those companies. And then that was subsequently expanded to be a bachelor's program in agricultural business, very relevant. The other, and I won't go into great detail on it, was with respect to oil. Again, I said, we're not going to have the full-blown mechanical and civil and other engineering programs, but what can we do to be helpful? And their answer was that, of course, nowadays, all of the oil wells are managed from remote computer centers, not by people running around to these oil wells. And so what we talked about with them was computer engineering and also electrical engineering. And here we didn't have the resources for that, couldn't get the resources for that. And so our faculty wrote proposals for grants that were received from the Department of Education and the National Science Foundation and others. And so we were able to add our first ever engineering programs, computer engineering, electrical engineering, and engineering sciences that included a concentration in petroleum engineering. And so now we are far more relevant to the major industries in the region than we were before we instituted those new academic programs.
Thank you, President Mitchell. That was very interesting. Trustee Carney? Or did you have a question? Comment? No? Oh, another president. Yay.
So in addition to all of the steps that my colleagues have outlined, including working very closely with our Senate, we are also very involved with the workforce development organizations, the Inland Empire Economic Partnership, Convergence, which is a new organization that really looks at the allied health professions and the need for allied health professionals, nurses, physician's assistants, docs throughout the Inland Empire, Riverside, and San Bernardino County. So in addition to looking at capacity and certainly paying very close attention to our budget constraints, we also work very closely with those organizations throughout Riverside and San Bernardino County that is working towards developing an educated workforce in that region.
Great. George?
Thank you. Thank you to all the presidents that spoke. I think now, I'm just so impressed on how many programs we're actually adding just to meet the market base. And I wish Newsom was still here to relay this message. Again, I'm just so impressed on how you're adding all these programs to meet market base with the little things, the little money that we have to create new programs for students. So great work, and I'm really happy that you all share those experiences.
Eduardo?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in myself and share a little bit of what we do at Monterey Bay. We have a foundation board that doubles up as an advisory board to me with 25 people from the community, representative of regions and industries. And based on their input and our relationships, we have developed programs in direct response to our local industries, the two major industries being hospitality and agriculture. We have the first, what we think is the nation's first sustainable hospitality management program. And we're developing a focus on agribusiness and problems faced by agribusiness in our region in our College of Science. We've also responded to the need for teachers in South Monterey County by doing a 2+2 program with the community colleges there at their own satellite down in King City. And we have developed, with the support of the healthcare industry in our region, a physician's assistant program that is actually being run on a self-support basis to address a dire need for additional PAs.
Thank you all. That was really, really helpful. Is anybody else want to let us know what's going on? Okay. Mary?
Well, I'm not going to speak to a specific program, but I just want to put in a little plug here for that French major and the humanities. And I say that because my region is Silicon Valley and the tech industry and innovation. And these are also global companies. And when we speak to our employers, as my colleagues do, they tell us that they not only need people who have expertise in the science and technology of things, but also working collaboratively and working in global environments. And so sometimes those programs that may on the surface look like they're not actually aligned with the workforce, in fact, are in some different ways. And I just wanted to make sure that didn't get lost.
All right, thank you. So this is an action item before the Committee on Educational Policy. Only committee members may vote at this time. May I have a motion? Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Item 4, academic planning is approved. Now, heading into the end. Item 5 is an information item regarding recommended amendments to Title V regarding Doctor of Nursing Practice degree programs. It will be presented by Lauren Blanchard, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, and Christine Mallon, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs and Faculty Developments. Dr. Blanchard, please begin.
So it certainly appears that the Doctor of Nursing Practice is the topic of the day. And so the amendments introduced today as an information item are proposed to bring Title V regulations into alignment with amended state education code regarding CSU Doctor of Nursing Practice, or DNP, degree programs. Dr. Chris Mallon, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs and Faculty Development, will now brief us on the proposed updates to Title V.
Thank you. In 2010, the CSU was granted temporary legislative authority to offer DNP degree programs. The intent was that through these programs, the CSU would prepare nurses to serve in advanced clinical practice as family nurse practitioners, nurse midwives, nurse anesthetists, clinical nurse specialists, nurse educators, nurse leaders, and to educate graduates to serve as faculty. Our programs were deemed successful at doing both. CSU DNP graduates are published scholars and experts in evidence-based practice. They improve clinical practice and patient outcomes. They serve as faculty trained in curriculum design and pedagogy. Recognizing that the CSU fulfilled legislative intent, the state of California granted the CSU permanent DNP authority last year. As a result of the legal change, Title V amendments related to DNP degree programs are presented today for your information. Through the adoption of Assembly Bill 422 in 2017, amendments to California Education Code have expanded DNP authority by eliminating temporary pilot status, which was due to expire July 1st of this year. Also eliminating the limitation to only 3 campuses being able to offer DNP programs, a legislative reporting requirement for DNP programs, and a restriction to only postmaster's admission. With this change, CSU DNP programs, like so many programs across the country, can now admit students who hold bachelor's degrees in nursing. Title V DNP sections specify that the CSU is authorized to offer DNP programs, explain that campuses may partner to offer joint programs if desired, describe DNP programs and their purpose, list degree requirements, and identify criteria for admitting applicants. Amendments also reflect changes in education code sections that are cited in our DNP Title V regulations. The Title V amendments that we've introduced today will be presented at the May meeting for board action. And with this, Chair Kimbell, we are finished with this presentation unless you have questions for us. We'd be happy to take those.
Okay. Our final item, thank you very much. Our final item will be an information item on academic preparation. It will be presented by Dr. Lauren Blanchard, James Miner, Assistant Vice Chancellor and Senior Strategist for Academic Success and Inclusive Excellence, and Sherry Ichinoze, if I pronounce that right, Associate Professor at California State University, Fullerton. Dr. Blanchard, please begin.
Today, of the 25,000 students who arrive in need of additional academic preparation, the California State University has long met students where they are, academically, developmentally, and economically, and supported them to degree completion. Over the past 2 decades, the number of students entering the CSU academically prepared has steadily improved. These improvements are the results of a number of factors. First, The CSU has increased collaboration with K-12 districts to align curricula. There's also a growing focus by teachers to better prepare students for college. And we've also expanded the use of multiple measures to improve the assessment and placement of students. And these improvements are also a result of CSU faculty who work with entering students to ensure that they are ready to achieve their academic goals. But even with these overall improvements in college readiness, we recognize that still too many students enter the CSU deemed underprepared for college-level courses. Today, of the 25,000 students who arrive in need of additional academic preparation in mathematics, 1 in 4 will not return for their second year. Only 10% will graduate in 4 years, and less than half will earn a degree after 6 years. This disproportionately impacts students from historically underserved communities. As Chancellor White stated during his January State of the CSU address, this status quo has become unacceptable. That is why our ongoing work to improve and address academic preparation is a cornerstone of our Graduation Initiative 2025 efforts. 1 year ago, we presented to the board 4 key areas related to academic preparation where our attention is laser focused. First, increasing high school preparation to ensure students have the necessary skills to get accepted to the CSU, be successful, and earn a degree. Second, improving placement and assessment for incoming first-year students to better customize academic support and ensure that students who are prepared for college-level courses have the opportunity to begin taking those classes immediately. Third, strengthening the Early Start program to ensure that students who are required to take these courses are able to maximize the benefit. And fourth, restructuring developmental education to ensure that all CSU students have the opportunity to begin taking college-level courses in mathematics, quantitative reasoning, and English for credit beginning their first day on campus. I will now ask Dr. James Minor, Assistant Vice Chancellor in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs, to provide several updates on our work to strengthen and address academic preparation at the California State University. James?
Thank you, Dr. Blanchard. Recent policy changes outlined in Executive Order 1110 relate to 3 of the 4 points previously mentioned: assessment and placement, the Early Start program, and restructuring developmental education. Campuses are currently planning for and implementing these changes system-wide. These policies were shared in detail with the board at the November 2017 meeting. Executive Order 1110 will support students by more accurately assessing their ability to perform in college-level courses and making smarter course placement decisions for incoming students to improve their chances of being successful. Based on historic student data, the CSU is implementing new systems for expanded use of multiple measures for skills assessment. This includes high school grades and high school coursework, which have been consistently shown as a stronger predictor of how likely students are to achieve course outcomes over an academic term. As a result, the entry-level mathematics exam, commonly referred to as ELM, and the English placement exam, commonly referred to as the EPT, have been officially discontinued. Certainly worth noting that CSU faculty and staff are working diligently to redesign math, quantitative reasoning, and English courses to ensure that all students are able to begin taking credit-bearing courses their first day on campus. These alternative course models strengthen academic rigor by providing additional support for students as a part of the credit-bearing course. To support these efforts, the Office of the Chancellor is providing a series of professional development opportunities that began last summer. This includes webinars with faculty who have successfully redesigned math and quantitative reasoning courses as well as English courses, and full-day system-wide summits focused on providing faculty and staff the tools needed to successfully implement Executive Order 1110. Collectively, campuses are reporting steady progress on redeveloping courses to include supportive structures, with a number of campuses redesigning not only entry-level math courses such as college algebra, but also STEM-related courses such as calculus. In addition, the Chancellor's Office has reprioritized and reallocated nearly $10 million to campuses from one-time sources to support faculty and professional development in math, quantitative reasoning, and English course redesign. We have also been pursuing and have secured philanthropic resources to support these implementation efforts. While these funds obviously do not replace the need for sustained and sufficient funding from the state, they do highlight the importance of this work to our student success goals. We all recognize that it will be important to have a plan in place to thoroughly evaluate the impact and the efficacy of recent policy changes. To that end, we are partnering with an external evaluation team to assess our efforts, the changes in student outcomes, and to provide actionable feedback to our campuses. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not highlight the ongoing work that is being done across the CSU on the first bullet point provided by Dr. Blanchard, increasing preparation in high school. Dedicated CSU staff are conducting outreach to students, families, K-12 districts, and other community partners to provide support for high school students. This includes information on A through G requirements and preparing for the ACT and the SAT. Super Sunday, which was held just last month, was one important aspect of this outreach effort. CSU ambassadors visited nearly 100 places of worship across the state to strengthen connections between communities and their local CSU campuses. As we look forward to the remainder of 2018, this is a critical period for the implementation of Executive Order 1110. Beginning fall 2018, campuses will have completed their redesign of developmental education courses and will be providing incoming first-year students credit-bearing courses in math, quantitative reasoning, and English that have the necessary academic support embedded or attached to the course. As a result of the work over the next several months, this will require everyone, faculty, staff, administrators, and students to continue working together to ensure success. As just one illustration of the work, I want to invite Dr. Sherry Ichinose, Associate Professor at Cal State Fullerton, to share a few words about her experience redesigning math courses.
Thank you, Dr. Miner. At Cal State Fullerton, we are well on our way of meeting the Graduation Initiative 2025 goals. While these efforts are wide-ranging, ensuring that students can succeed in mathematics is critical to our campus, increasing graduation rates and reducing time to degree. As a math educator, I am excited to share with you what Cal State Fullerton has been doing with respect to innovation and technology when teaching mathematics. In 2013, the Chancellor's Office identified college algebra and pre-calculus as statewide high-demand, low-success, also known as your bottleneck courses. Through the CSU Course Redesign and Technology Program, Cal State Fullerton received funding to redesign and institutionalize these courses to meet the needs of the 21st century learners. This program provided participants professional development, course release, and the technology to meet the needs of these innovations. I designed and implemented what is called the flipped classroom. For each course, I created interactive modules where students engaged in the mathematics prior to coming to class. Students then took a pre-assessment, which I call a ticket in the door. Each day, the instructor then will quickly assess the mathematical knowledge of the students to better guide the instruction of that class period. While the initial content is delivered prior to class, class time is now focused on achieving student-centered discussion rather than passively taking notes. My classes are full of energy, often called organized chaos, and students report favorable attitudes coming to class, or often this is not the case in a mathematics class, especially for our STEM majors, or non-STEM majors rather. Students enjoy the ability to watch the videos prior to coming to class. They mention that they're not worried about rushing to take notes. They can pause, they can rewind, they can fast forward. Students come to class with a lower anxiety. They report that they've already seen the material once, so they come to class prepared. An unexpected benefit, I have a stronger relationship with my students. Now, mind you, these are my non-major students in my flipped classroom. I have the time to get to know them because I'm walking around the class, getting to know what their needs are. I have, they have an increased amount of students in my office hours. And the participation, for that matter, in an extremely high class load, in the sense that I have a lot of students in my classes, and in a commuter campus, they're coming to my office hours. It's amazing. With what started out as my vision to improve students' learning in my classes had turned into something very special. I was able to institutionalize these courses by sharing this with other mathematics faculty at Fullerton, thereby serving well over 2,500 students. I'm proud to report the success rate of our flipped class. The flipped college algebra had a pass rate of 74% compared to the 68% in the traditional setting. The flipped pre-calculus had a 70% pass rate compared to the 55% in the traditional. Now, with the recent policy changes, there is an increased focus on coordinating redesigned efforts on behalf of our students. At Cal State Fullerton, redesigning courses is not foreign to us. We are leading the efforts throughout the system in redesigning high-quality courses that meet the needs of our students without losing the rigor of the mathematics. There's a great enthusiasm at Fullerton for how this work will provide our students with more equitable access to high-quality support services that they deserve. We will continue to answer the call to support all of our students on our campus and system-wide in the efforts to increase graduation rates, close the equity gap, and decrease the time to graduate.
Thank you, Dr. Ichinose, for sharing that experience and the impact the work that you are doing at Cal State Fullerton is having on student success. The one final issue I want to highlight that is related to our academic preparation work is one that is on the horizon, and that is a continued engagement with our stakeholders on establishing a requirement of a fourth year of mathematics or quantitative reasoning for incoming students. Just last month, the president of the State Board of Education, Michael Kirsch, joined the Admissions Advisory Council to discuss a range of topics, including the potential for a fourth year of math or quantitative reasoning requirement. We will continue to work with the California Department of Education, the University of California, and several of the largest K-12 districts in the state to ensure that students have the opportunity to take 4 years of math in preparation for college success. I will now turn it over to Dr. Blanchard to conclude the presentation.
Thank you so much, James and Dr. Ichinose. What happens in the first year of college forms the foundation on which students build their academic paths. It informs their academic pursuits and ultimately sets the stage for their attainment of a high-quality degree. Based on a body of evidence nationally, research, and student outcomes data, we firmly contend that Executive Order 1110 will have a significant positive impact on students' abilities to successfully earn a degree, and that these policies are essential to closing equity and achievement gaps at the CSU. That is why we view our efforts to improve academic preparation as some of the most important work underway at the CSU. We will continue to provide resources and support to the dedicated faculty and staff who are implementing the new policies to ensure that all students, including those who arrive in need of additional academic support, enter their second academic year on track to earn a CSU degree. Trustee Campbell, this concludes our presentation. I've been talking so much today, and my words are getting a little garbled. We'll be happy to answer any questions the board members might have at this time.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Ichinose, I wish you had been around when I was struggling through pre-calculus. All right, so can we hear from Thelma first, and then Peter and Chairwoman Becky.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that I was at the symposium and sat in your workshop, and I was very, very impressed, Professor, by your work and how many you're actually, how you've organized it, and also how you're impacting other professors in mathematics. And I think it's really, really important. And I thought that I wish I was back in Santa Ana, because I would have contacted you Because when we look at adding an additional year of mathematics, I think it really begs the question as to whether or not the CSU can partner with K-12 to kind of work out and build capacity of K-12 teachers in mathematics. So the type of innovative practices that you're putting in place can also happen in K-12. We do also have flipped classrooms, but it's not, we don't have the expertise that you bring. So it would be incredible, now that I'm in Inglewood, to see something like that happen, because your work was outstanding. I also want to shout out to Cal State Fresno, because they also presented in that workshop, and it was very, very impressive. And there was a third professor there. He was a philosophy, what was he? Science. And where was he from? Supplemental instruction.
Sorry. Chico.
It was Chico. Yeah, he was incredible as well. And it was just really exciting to hear the work that's happening. But I also think that partnership should continue. New trustee Steinhauser, he was actually the individual. He and I were at a conference, and we sat around talking about, when I was in Santa Ana, about something he had just started with Cal State Long Beach, and that was the implementation of the ERWC. And so he encouraged me to work with Fullerton, and we started that course with our high schools. And so I know that, that little seed that he started, grew, and to see that it's in most of the high schools now. So I also encourage you to do the same with mathematics, in a sense of not just working with opportunities, but working and building capacity at the K-12 level. Thank you.
Likewise, Dr. Chinosi, love that story. It does beg the question: are we scaling up? Can we take the flipped classroom and apply it system-wide?
We've had some great professional development, and through the course redesign, we have quite a few faculty throughout the system that are flipping the classroom, and they're making it their own with their own institutions. Remember that each one of us have our own little quirks within each institution, and so we all put our own spin on it. So I think you're going to see more and more in that throughout the system.
I think it's very exciting, and congratulations to you. Quick question, Dr. Miner. The objective external evaluation team, have you hired an outside firm? If so, who might it be?
We have contracted with West Ed, which, as you may know, is a standing JPA, which allows it to serve all state agencies. JPA, I'm sorry. Yeah. Joint Powers Authority, which, I'm sorry, the acronyms, which allows it to contract and serve all state organizations. We're also happy to say that the evaluation plan that we have developed, we have been in contact with our statewide Senate in terms of talking through the parameters and scope of the evaluation, and we're continuing to get feedback. And the last thing I'll mention is that we have been able to cover the cost of the evaluation through philanthropic support and external dollars, which has also been very helpful to us. So it allows us to establish some objectivity, ask really tough questions that I think we will want to know a year from now in terms of how these policy changes are performing for students.
Wonderful. Look forward to seeing the results from that.
All right.
Thank you.
Becky, and then Doug, and then after that we need to wrap this up because we are running almost an hour late. So.
Okay. Boy, I wish I had a voice right at this moment, because I could not want to be heard more loudly or more clearly about how fantastic this work is that we're doing for students that were really left behind. We had so many students who had been caught in what has been called the Bermuda Triangle of remediation. And they did not come out of that eddy very well. Very few of them graduated in 4 years. Very few of them graduated at all. And so to take on this enormous project, I know that some other states have gone out there and tried this already, but when the largest university in America takes this on, it is going to be a model all over this country, and is going to make a difference in the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of individuals. underserved individuals to date. So I cannot congratulate all of you and our intensely devoted faculty for what they're doing to make this happen. I hope my voice has not impaired my message, because I really want you to hear it. Thanks.
Quick question. What's the size? How many students are in your flipped class?
So typically we have about 36 students in each class, 36 to 38. When I teach the particular class, I prefer larger classes, so I'll have about 60. But I've also implemented an apprentice program, so I'm not always by myself with the 60 students. I pair myself with perhaps 2 undergraduate, like a student teacher. So I'm the coordinator for the credential program, so I'm trying to get more teachers out of the program as well.
So following up on Peter's comment, could you scale it up even to greater numbers?
Bigger than 60?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you could if you had the facility, but as presidents know, the infrastructures of your universities, I don't know if we can get a size of a room that would facilitate, because it's not, the rooms that I'm in aren't typical lecture halls. They're actually moving into groups of 2s and 3s and 4s. So it depends on how large you can scale that room to get that student-centered learning. I wouldn't be able to scale it much bigger in the sense for the infrastructure.
But the scaling also comes because you indicated that your faculty colleagues are also engaged in using the flipped classroom as well for the math courses.
Right. So we have about 20 to, I'd say 30 faculty. Now this includes our teacher associates. So our master's students are flipping. We have our adjunct faculty that are flipping. And then we also have our full-time, some of our full-time lecturers. So in that case, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Just a quick question and clarification. So I listened to public comment, and obviously it wasn't as enthusiastic about this executive order. And candidly, I've been out, I've done 27 town halls in the last few months, and there's a lot of misinformation about this, a lot of consternation, and not everybody feels the same way as I believe the majority of us feel. I certainly concur with you, Madam President. How do you respond to the comments you heard in public comment? What is it that we are not communicating to folks about what we're doing, what our intention is? How is it being miscommunicated? And why is faculty, many of them still remain stubbornly opposed to this and feel we've done things to them, not with them?
I can't answer to the entire question because I wasn't here this morning. But as far as the comments that I have heard, a big part of it is time, and having to create these courses do take time to do a good job. And so when we were introduced with the executive order, I had a chair that said, this is what's happening. Let's get in front of it and let's do the best we can for our students. So that's kind of the lens that we used at Fullerton. And so we just went and we're doing the best we can. I can't speak for all faculty. I can speak for the faculty at Fullerton.
But how about the folks that just spoke before this hearing? There were very specific comments, some a little bit more edgy than others.
Lieutenant Governor, let me just take one pass at this. I want to acknowledge the public comments, and I think we have been engaged quite consistently since the policy changes were announced until now. Here we are on the doorstep of the effective date and implementation. I think there are two sort of gaps that I think we're working to close. One has to do with effectively communicating consistent and clear information about what the policy changes are and what they aren't. I think a lot of the consternation and sort of sentiments about it, some emanated from just simply a lack of clear understanding about the road in which we intended to travel. So and I think we've closed some of that over time, but we could probably do better. The other has to do with, as the professor stated, time and process. So I think what we've heard consistently is that most CSU constituents agree with the imperative to serve our students more effectively and to change the way we provide academic support for students who need it. The challenge has been the implementation timeline and what has been described as a shared governance process. I would like to think that we have closed the gap on both of those issues, but not completely.
Okay, thank you. As usual, we could spend the whole day on ed policy, and I would encourage the other trustees to reach out to Drs. Minor and Blanchard if you have any other questions. Chair Eisen, that concludes the Committee on Education Policy.